Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I'll be discussing my thoughts on Labour's reshuffle this Monday as some big changes were made with some very big hitters being promoted to key positions on the front bench. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news in politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So not part of the normal schedule. This is a funny time, Phil. It's not part of the normal. Don't worry, I'm not going back up to 3 videos a day. I'm only just managing 2. However, I thought this was an important topic, but I'm also conscious of the fact that party political videos are of limited interest to many people, and there's been quite a lot of them recently. And there might even be another one this Friday if Thursday's by-election looks interesting. It may or may not. So I've just thrown this one out as a bonus, or a punishment, take your pick. But there are 4 things that I want to discuss. First, the timing, which was ill-advised. Second was the reason for the reshuffle in the first place. Third are the people whom I thought should have been promoted but weren't. Fourth, my comments on who was promoted. So first one first. Monday, Angela Rayner, Deputy Leader, was giving a speech on Tory corruption. That's her brief, nailing Tory sleaze, Tory corruption, whatever you want to call it, and what Labour would do about it in office, because those 2 things are really important. Labour are now, and I'm going to be talking a bit more about this in tomorrow morning's video with the PMQ's review, Labour are now much better at targeting the Conservatives' vulnerabilities. What they need to do, however, is to tell the public what Labour are going to do better. And that's partly what this speech was about. Then it was announced that Starmer's going to carry out a major reshuffle. Well, the fact that he hadn't said what that reshuffle was until later is neither here nor there. All of a sudden, that's the big news of the day. I mean, Angela Rayner knew about it. She didn't know the details. She's not involved in the details. But I mean, that's hardly the point. It completely overshadowed the speech. Complete own goal. Do not know what boneheaded thinking that one was. Not only did it cover up important work on tackling the Tories' reputation and building up Labour's credentials, but it created another little row between Starmer and Rayner, totally unnecessary, and it allowed Boris Johnson to poke at Labour in fighting again to distract from his own mess. Ridiculous. Starmer could have carried out that reshuffle at the end of this week or the beginning of next week, and in the grand scheme of things, an extra few days wouldn't have made that much difference. Unnecessary own goal there. That being said, I doubt it will have registered much on the radar of swing voters, but the reshuffle itself may have. So second one is why we need it. I mean, a couple of things here. First of all, the Labour front bench was no longer actually shadowing the government. The most glaring omission is that Michael Gove is rogue. He's effectively got a new role for which there was no Labour MP shadowing him. Do not ever take your eyes off that man. Now, Michael Gove is the most competent member of Boris Johnson's government. He is the only one who actually achieves objectives. Yes, those objectives are rarely in our interest. When he was Education Secretary, and I was a teacher, I did not like what he was doing, and neither did many of my colleagues. But the fact of the matter is, when he's given a job, he completes it. The idea that not a single Labour MP had the job of keeping a close eye on the best minister Johnson could have, that couldn't carry on for long. Michael Gove is now the minister for basically levelling up. Lisa Nandy has been made his shadow minister. Now, this looks like a weird move. Lisa Nandy has been very good as shadow foreign secretary and has impressed Starmer by all accounts. The move looks like a demotion because in the hierarchy of things you have the leader, then you would have the shadow chancellor, then you would have the shadow home secretary and foreign secretary, and then below that you have others like, defence, health, education, and there's a tier process. The levelling up, where does that fit in? It's certainly not one of the top departments of state, so it looks like a downgrade. But the thing is, levelling up, it's a non-department. It won't actually get done. But it is also the Tories' only game plan to win the next election. They can't do the get Brexit done. They can try keep Brexit done, but that's not a promise for future improvements. The Conservatives, with or without Johnson, are having to bet the farm on their levelling up agenda. Not necessarily complete it, just persuade people that they're progressing with it. So Nandy has actually been given a very important role and shadowing the most effective minister the government have. In fact, one of her first interviews on getting the post, she had quite a brilliant explanation of what it is. She said, when she was asked about her new title, she said, it's a very long title that Michael Gove concocted for himself But essentially the job is to deliver on the broken promises of the last 11 years. The other reason is just that in opposition, you don't need shadow ministers to come up with lots of policies. That's nice, but your policy team can handle that. And that should include your senior shadow ministers. What you actually need shadow ministers to do is to haul their opposite number in government over the coals. Because they don't actually formulate policy, really, because they can't enact any of it. Their job is to make the government ministers, the ones who are enacting policy, look stupid and incompetent. That's their job. Some have been doing it well, like Emily Thornberry, Ed Milliband, Rachel Reeves and so on. Some have been solid, but not really getting the message across. But two people who have been doing well, and I would like to have seen be given more prominent roles, if anything, are Rosina Allin-Khan and Emily Thornberry. Thornberry has exposed Brexit lies and damage in terms of the international trade agreement in her role as Shadow International Trade Secretary quite brilliantly. She's been superb. She has been made Shadow Attorney General. Okay, replacing Lord Falconer with an actual MP, that's good. It's reducing the number of non-elected people in the front bench. Okay, and it's an important job in government. Attorney General is a very important job in government, but in opposition, I don't think it's that prominent. Allin-Khan has impressed me ever since her campaign to become the deputy leader. She lost out to Angela Rayner, of course. She wasn't as well known then. But at the time, I was so impressed that I felt Starmer should have just made her Shadow Health Secretary. I sort of got that her star hadn't risen enough yet, but I just thought she'd be brilliant. And her performances as a more junior Shadow Minister, she deals with sort of mental health. And she's a doctor as well. I mean, I don't always buy this idea that they should have worked in the sector for which they're ministers, because otherwise you could only have 2 or 3 basically useless ministers in the role. But she is brilliant, and she does understand the department. And her performances have done nothing to persuade me that she shouldn't be the Shadow Health Secretary. So I'd have liked to see Allin-Khan as Shadow Health Secretary, Emily Thornberry as Shadow Education Secretary, perhaps. Both were roles where the previous occupants weren't quite managing it and they needed replacing, and both have been replaced. But with up-and-coming stars, Wes Streeting in health, Bridget Phillipson in education. And they've been good. They have been impressive. They certainly look like stars of the future. But I just see them as less safe options. Now, they might be brilliant. I obviously hope they are going to be brilliant. But I'm not sure. Now, Ed Milliband has also had a slightly changed role. Now, it's interesting, but I don't know the reason. He was Shadow Minister for Energy and Business and so on. It included environmental policies. He's been knocking out of the park as well. He's now the Climate Secretary. So basically his old role has been split into 2, climate and business. So Milliband will continue to deal with environmental energy issues and so on, with Jonathan Reynolds just dealing with business. Now this could be a good move, or it could be a weird cynical move. See, with Labour having a shadow minister focused entirely on climate issues, and with it being a prominent member of the party, they're highlighting the fact that it should have its own department. They're saying, we're taking this seriously. This shouldn't be tacked onto a different department. It should be its own department, and it should be a big one. They're giving the issue more importance than the Tories, basically. On the other hand, it's not mirroring the government departments and will mean that Milliband gets less time at the dispatch box. In terms of the 2 massive moves, however, we've got, and these were huge, David Lammy as Shadow Foreign Secretary and Yvette Cooper as Shadow Home Secretary. Quite brilliant moves for a few reasons. They are both 2 of the very best debaters that Labour have in the parliamentary party. Seriously good at the dispatch box and in interviews. Yvette Cooper will tear Priti Patel a new arsehole. How do I know? Because she's already done it. She has been chair of the Home Affairs Select Committee. So she's already faced off against Priti Patel. But not a lot of people watch Select Committee hearings. They do go on a bit. But she will now do this under the brighter spotlight of the House of Commons debating chamber. She also has experience of high office. She was Foreign Secretary when Labour were last in power. It's been a desperate shame that it's taken this long for Starmer to bring her into the shadow cabinet. And no surprise that when he finally had the confidence to do it, he just puts her into one of the most senior positions there are. You know, like I say, she's been chair of the Home Affairs Select Committee since 2016. She was Shadow Home Secretary under Ed Milliband. So basically, she's been having like oversight of the Home Office for years. Her experience is second to none in the House of Commons. She knows this brief and will be straight on it. Now, some on the hard left are bafflingly objecting, you know, because she's basically a Blairite. She's centre left. Okay. But this is the reason why it took so long to bring her in. But their fears are completely unfounded. See, they think this is a cabinet of people with too much of a leaning to the right. But to that, this is what I would have to say. One, we need big hitters in the key positions. You cannot have got to have these balance of policy. No, because you're going to decide a single policy anyway, and the leader's going to decide that. You need your shadow ministers to be the big hitters. People need to get it through their heads that politics is a brutal game. You need your biggest bruisers. The bruisers on the hard left, they exist. There are some with skills. John McDonnell, Diane Abbott. But they refused. They refused to take up any positions. The bottom line is that the people that the Corbynites wanted in place turned those places down. And now they're whining to Starmer about it. Starmer, why don't you get John McDonnell in the cabinet? He didn't want to be in it. Why don't you Diane Abbott? She didn't want to be in it. Why are you whining to me? That's what I would turn around and say to them. Moan at them. In addition, they have attacked Starmer from day one. No, before day one. From the start of the leadership contest, they have sought to undermine him, openly attack him. So they've seen their best champions turn down positions and have made an enemy of the Labour leadership and are now bellyaching that they aren't being listened to. And I said right from the start, if the left don't put aside their tribal toxicity and join in, actually join in, do you know, with your own party, then we'd be left out when it came to policy formation. These people whine about Blairism. This is how you get Blairism, by not actually taking your seat at the table to be heard. You know, you think Starmer and others base their policy decisions on what some random brain fart appears on social media? No. They're discussed in closed groups. Be a part of those closed groups or lose your voice. They chose the latter. Dumbasses. Anyway, bugger that. Fortunately, I'm pragmatic and will take whatever I can get in politics. And what I can get right now, the only thing on offer, is a minority Labour government that's going to have to work with Lib Dems, SNP and others anyway. Now, the other big hitter there was David Lammy, I said. Very good appointment as Foreign Secretary. Has very good links with the United States Democrats. Seriously clever, comes across very well, really good personality for the sort of remote communication needed of politicians at this level. You know, where you can't talk face to face to like millions of people. But those are my initial thoughts on the reshuffle. We'll see how it works out. There's some appointments I know will do the business. I'm absolutely confident of that. Some I'm less sure about. But one thing is clear. This is Starmer's shadow cabinet now. These moves are a clear sign that because he's tinkered up to now in order to try and satisfy all sides. And it hasn't worked. At the end of the day, people have moaned anyway. So he's just gone, do you know what, sod you. I'm just getting the best people in. That's what he's done. Well, whether it's the best people is another matter. But what it is a clear sign is that he's got MPs on his side that trust him. The majority are on his side. Because there's no hints here of trying to babysit different factions. It's just he's got in what he thinks are the best people into each role. Because this was a wide-ranging reshuffle. The question, of course, is he right in judging who is actually the best for each role? But those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, please also click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.